When I was a kid, I thought SpongeBob was all about pure chaos and Krabby Patties. But watching it as an adult, you start to notice something interesting. Little moments that feel oddly familiar. And then you realize this happens a lot, especially in the first 3 seasons. In fact, SpongeBob has been quietly recreating scenes from centuries of art, literature, and storytelling. I still can't believe how much precision is hidden amidst the slapstick, something that most people would never expect from a Nickelodeon cartoon. Everyone knows SpongeBob loves absurd bits. But what most people don't realize is that the show often borrows its jokes straight from some of the most iconic movies ever made. You guys are probably familiar with this one. In Graveyard Shift, SpongeBob and Squidward are stuck working the night shift. And just like any slow, boring night shift, you start to notice the scary stuff. Lights flicker, someone gets dropped off by a bus in the middle of the night, and then suddenly, every kid in our generation got totally caught off guard. But that's not just a random vampire. It's Count Orlok from the 1922 silent German horror film Nosferatu, which is a rip-off version of Dracula written by the famous Bram Stoker. And what's also interesting is that this scene came straight from the movie. They just put it in there as a final shot for the episode and added the smile. The writers just loved making these kind of scenes, didn't they? Especially for the Halloween specials. Because this isn't the first time they do it. I Was a Teenage Gary also had some classic horror references. That scene, be it as uncomfortable as it is a direct parody of a werewolf transformation. It comes from a movie called An American Werewolf in London, but the title itself is a play on another werewolf movie called I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Yeah, there were lots of werewolf references in this episode, which I already covered in another video quite some time ago. Click here if you want the full story. Looking back, no wonder these scenes are creepy. They're actually proven on a big screen way before these kids are even born. But do you know what's also old and scary? Of course, that line is a direct reference to the iconic opening song from Ghostbusters.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Now, sometimes the references aren't always scary. Some are just weirdly heartwarming. Like this one from Fear of a Krabby Patty.
I'll always be with you, right here.
A scene of a glowing fingertip followed by a heartfelt goodbye. Most of us would just get weirded out by that scene. And yet, there's something strangely emotional about it. A hallucination about Patty telling SpongeBob he'll always be in his heart. Which, I'm sure that is true, but turns out, this scene is actually a perfect recreation of E.T.'s final moment. A very important moral story about how good friends will do whatever is best for each other, even if it means saying goodbye. What a sad story. And what else better to accompany it than the sad note from the world's smallest violin? That joke actually comes from Reservoir Dogs.
It's the world's smallest violin playing just for the waitresses.
In Tarantino's film, this scene actually serves as a sarcastic line mocking fake sympathy, which is also what Krabs does in Squilliam Returns. He doesn't care a single speck about Squidward's sad story, he just wants Squilliam's money. And right when you think it's going to stay wholesome, SpongeBob pulls out this reference for the ending of Spongehenge. The camera dramatically shows a ruined, crusty crab after SpongeBob's long time gone. A near identical framing to Planet of the Apes when Charlton Heston finds the fallen Statue of Liberty. It's grim, surreal, and completely unexpected from a Nickelodeon cartoon. What's wild is how quick these moments just slip in. Sometimes just 2 or 3 seconds, but they connect SpongeBob to 100 years of cinema history, to which SpongeBob writes many love letters. Some of these love letters are pretty obvious. In Karate Island, Sandy shows up wearing a bright yellow tracksuit, the exact same one Uma Thurman wore in Kill Bill. But here's the twist. Kill Bill itself was already paying homage to Bruce Lee's 1978 martial arts classic, Game of Death. In both films, the hero ascends a high tower, fighting a new opponent on each floor, and Sandy does exactly that. It's a perfect homage, just like clams.
Almost there! That's it!
This whole episode is basically Jaws meets Moby Dick, right down to the score. Mr. Krabs becomes an obsessed fisherman hunting the giant clam that stole his precious dollar.
A giant blue-lipped clam ate me millionth dollar!
Even the title card mimics the Jaws poster exactly, except the shark is now a clam and the woman is a floating dollar bill. It's truly peak SpongeBob humor. Take something terrifying, replace the human stakes with something stupidly trivial, and suddenly, it's even funnier. But not every SpongeBob parody is obvious, because just when you think you've caught the pattern, the next reference comes from somewhere completely different. In the episode Texas, SpongeBob quotes the famous line from The Wizard of Oz, "There's no place like home."
Remember, there's no place like home.
But instead of a girl in ruby slippers, it's about a sponge trying to cheer up a homesick squirrel.
Wish I was back in Texas.
A Pal for Gary is also a surprising homage to 1984's Gremlins.
This is no ordinary pet. Gary's gonna be so happy.
SpongeBob adopts a strange, adorable, fluffy creature from a suspicious vendor. The seller literally warns him he's not what he seems.
Especially around other pets.
And like Gremlins, the creature turns into a monster if he's fed after midnight. Only this time, SpongeBob is completely oblivious while his pet snail fights for his life. Also, if you pause that same episode, you'll catch a smaller reference. SpongeBob's bookshelf features works by T.S. Halibut, a fishy parody of the great poet T.S. Eliot. It's subtle, but it shows you what kind of writers this show had. People who slipped their favorite art into every corner of Bikini Bottom. It's a parody, yes, but also a quiet kind of admiration. After all, animation isn't isolated from the rest of media. It's part of the same creative ecosystem, just one art form borrowing from another. Everything can fit together in art as long as you know where to use it. And what's wild about it is how unsettlingly deep some of those moments go. Scenes that look like throwaway jokes at first, but the more you recognize what they're referencing, the more you start to wonder how they ever made it into a kids' show. Squeaky Boots looks like just another story about a workplace scam, until you notice something deeply haunting. The second half of the episode plays into Mr. Krabs' guilt, his paranoia, and the squeaky sound that won't stop echoing in his head.
I can still hear it!
It's a play on Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Even his final outburst
It's a squeaking of the hideous boots!
mirrors Poe's narrator screaming, "It was the heart!" SpongeBob always found a way to use classic tragedy to explore simple emotion, like the next one from Something Smells.
SpongeBob?
It's a reference to the classic The Phantom of the Opera. SpongeBob hides his face in shame, shrouded in a cloak, playing a woeful tune on the organ to mourn his ugly face. It's all the same visual language as the 1925 silent film, just reimagined through bad breath and melodrama. But the show doesn't stop at books and films. Sometimes they go as far as to reach into fine art itself. In Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost, there's one scene showing SpongeBob and Patrick carrying Squidward in front of an aquatic version of the French painting La Troupe de Mademoiselle Eglantine. Only in the SpongeBob version, the painting's called Troupe de Poissons and features 4 dancing fish instead of 4 elegant ladies. The reference doesn't end there, because as the scenes played out, Squidward kept complaining about too hot or too wet. But when he gets to the painting, he says, Toulouse-Lautrec, which is a play on the artist's name himself, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. Damn, SpongeBob may be chaos on the surface, but deep down, it's art school humor. And once you start noticing that, you realize the same pattern shows up everywhere, even in SpongeBob's version of comic book heroes. As you can guess, our senile underwater superheroes are loving parodies of Batman and Robin, mixed with a touch of Aquaman and Aqualad. I mean, just look at the costumes, the lair, the invisible boatmobile, all straight out of Silver Age comics. And what's cool is that these episodes don't mock superheroes, they celebrate them, in the same way the writers celebrated every other piece of pop culture they love. And speaking of deep cuts, Here's one that's borderline ridiculous. In Big Pink Loser, Patrick has a life dream of defeating the giant monkey man and saving the 8th dimension. Sounds insane, until you realize it's a direct shout out to the 1984 cult classic, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the 8th Dimension. The titular 8th Dimension was a key part of the plot of Buckaroo Banzai, and it also featured a race of villainous aliens who called all humans Monkey Boy. It's such an obscure movie that most adults didn't even catch it, but somehow, SpongeBob's writers did. This kind of admiration spills into the show's musical references too. The episode Krabby Road and A Life in a Day is a play on Abbey Road and A Day in the Life, two legendary Beatles records. There's even the Yellow Album, a SpongeBob record named after the Beatles' White Album. Because why shouldn't Bikini Bottom have its own discography? Sometimes the references are smaller, a single line like a light bulb joke in Squirrel Jokes.
Hey, why does it take more than one squirrel to change a light bulb? Because they're so darn stupid.
The joke is borrowed from another classic, Raising Arizona.
How many Polacks take to screw up a light bulb?
I don't know, Glenn. One?
Nope, takes 3.
And just when you think you've caught them all, a stranger one shows up. A gag about a sailor scratching a chalkboard to quiet a crowd before the monster hunt begins. That's from Jaws again, only this time, the sailor just wants to know where the bathroom is.
In the back.
Thanks.
Looking back, it's easy to call SpongeBob random. But the truth is, there is nothing random about it. Every absurd moment hides a small reflection of the world outside, from silent films to classic poetry. And maybe that's why it still connects even decades later. SpongeBob has always borrowed from art to celebrate. I think that's what makes it timeless. Because even when it's joking, it never talks down to you. SpongeBob trusts that somewhere inside all of us, there's still a kid who loves stories, who wants to laugh, and who recognizes real art even when it's wrapped in nonsense. And maybe that's why even Plankton fits. In my previous video, I talked about how Plankton is failing on purpose, because deep down, he has something much darker going on. But to see that full story, you gotta watch the video yourself. I'm not gonna spoil it here. It's the perfect companion to this one. See you on the next dive.